Britain's commando frogman force is now the Special Boat Service, whose members are drawn largely from the Royal Marines. They perform various operations on land as well as in the water. Until the late 1990s, all members of the Special Air Service boat troop were trained as commando frogmen. History. In 1909, the British designer Commander Godfrey Herbert received a patent for a manned torpedo. During World War I, it was rejected by the War Office as impracticable and unsafe. Instead, in the interwar period, Italian Navy successfully trained the Special Frogman Corps Decima Flotille UMAS equipped with a new and powerful craft. A slow speed. Equipped with this new weapon, Italian manned torpedoes were first used against Britain in 1941 and latter 1942 when Italian commando frogmen, some riding manned torpedoes, attacked British naval bases at Malta, Gibraltar and Alexandria. In the last operation, 6 Italian frogmen rode 3 SLCs into the harbour and sank the British battleships Queen Elizabeth and Valiant, and the tanker Sagana. After these operations had shown how powerful and effective this weapon was, the Royal Navy was convinced to create their own program. This was also fictionalized in the 1958 film The Silent Enemy. 1942 April, the British Navy formed the Experimental Submarine Flotilla, initially based at Portsmouth. It was led by Commanders G.M. Sladen and W.R. Tiny Fell, who began to train frogmen in secret. The Navy called the manned torpedoes chariots. Many of the frogmen's breathing sets oxygen cylinders were German pilots' oxygen cylinders recovered from shot-down German Luftwaffe planes. Those first breathing sets may have been modified Davis submarine escape sets. The full-face diving masks were the type intended for the Seba, Gorman Salvis. But in later operations different designs were used, leading to a full-face diving mask with one big face window. One version had a flip-up single window for both eyes to let the user get binoculars to his eyes when on the surface. They used bulky thick diving suits called Sladen suits. This link shows a British wartime chariot team on the surface. 1942 June. The Experimental Submarine Flotilla moved to Port ZD at Quays on Loch Air Resort in Scotland. The first powered manned torpedo was the Mark I Chariot. Its hull was 21 in diameter. It could make 2.9 knots and could dive safely to a depth of 20 feet. The nose was a warhead with 600 pounds of high explosive. Training was hard. The men often suffered from oxygen poisoning because of the use of pure oxygen at depth, burst eardrums and sinus trouble. The strangeness of the chariots added to the problems. They were trained to ride and steer for a long time underwater and to then cut through harbour defence nets. The hardest part was learning to work with the chariots' warheads. August. The first group of trained British charioteers moved to base HHZ on Loch Cairnborn in Scotland to train in deeper waters, better matching the Norwegian fjords, and to simulate attacking bigger, better defended places. One died in training. September. The Norwegian Navy officer Leif Larsen told the British Navy that he wanted to attack the German battleship Tirpitz in Asen Fjord, a branch of the Trondheim Fjord in Norway. Operation title: the 26th of October. The fishing boat Arthur, operated by 3 Norwegians, left Britain with 7 British frogmen and 2 chariots hidden aboard. The 28th of October. Arthur reached Norway's coast near Edøya. The 30th of October. Arthur unloaded the chariots and began to tow them to the target. The 31st of October, a storm broke the fastening bolts of the chariots, which were lost. The attack was called off. The 1st of November, the Arthur was scuttled at Breidavik. The 10 members of the operation set off for Sweden in 2 groups. 9 reached Sweden. Germans captured one and later shot him as a spy. This operation was later portrayed in the 1955 war film Above Us the Waves, featuring John Mills, which was based on Operation Title and the later Operation Sussex craft midget submarine attacks on the Tirpitz. Late November, Britain sent 26 chariots to Malta, and they became part of the 10th Submarine Flotilla. 3 submarines received containers on the decks to carry the chariots. Operation Principle. The 28th of November, the British submarine P311 carrying 3 chariots and 10 charioteers left Marsamxett on Malta to attack La Maddalena on Sardinia, but struck a naval mine near Sardinia and sank with all hands. The 30th of November, the British submarines Thunderbolt, Trooper and Unruffled left Malta carrying chariots. After December 17, first known British frogman use of swimfins, rather than a Sladen suit and weighted boots riding a chariot, was by British clearance divers. 1943 Operation Principle. The 3rd of January, the submarines HMS Thunderbolt and HMS P311 carrying 2 chariots each and HMS Trooper carrying 3, with the respective crews, left to carry out this operation, the first by Britain involving the use of chariots. P311 was scheduled to attack targets at La Maddalena, while the other 2 submarines headed for the coast of Sicily near Palermo in a force 5 wind. One of the chariots which the trooper carried was ridden by Sub-Lieutenant Rodney Dove and leading seaman Jimmy Friel. As it was launched, a big wave washed it over the submarine, causing the loss of its limpet mines and the gear to attach the warhead to a ship. The chariots put mines on ships and patrol boats and sank some of them, but none of the mines exploded. One chariot put its warhead on the Italian cruiser Alpio Traiano, and afterwards smaller explosives on 4 ships. Alpio Traiano sank. Dove's chariot put its warhead on the Italian troop ship Viminale, by tying it to the stern post with ropes, causing severe damage but not sinking it. While being towed from the harbour for repairs, it was torpedoed by a British submarine and damaged again. Later in the year, while en route for repairs for the second attack, it was sunk by American torpedo boats. Because of bad weather, 2 chariots did not reach the harbour. All the chariots were lost, either scuttled, through equipment malfunction or human error. 1 charioteer died in the attack. The British submarine Unruffled recovered 2 others. 5 had to land and were taken prisoner. 2 of these prisoners later escaped from guards in Rome and hid in the Vatican until the Americans liberated Rome in 1944. 2 others, involved in a quite separate operation, see below, escaped from guards in Libya. In the middle of Tripoli they found a British Army unit and were returned to England. Dove ended up in a POW camp at Bremen in Germany, and got home in May 1945. He received the DSO. He died on the 30th of October 2005, aged 84. This left 8 charioteers with 2 chariots on Malta. 18 January 19. These 2 chariots were carried by submarines to attack ships that the Germans were going to use to block Tripoli harbour. The frogmen arrived too late and a block ship was sunk in the harbour mouth. None of the men at chariots returned to Malta. January. At Lough Corrie and Lough Cairnborn in Scotland, more charioteers were being trained. The 16th of April, Britain sent 14 new charioteers to Malta. In the days following they sent the new chariot Mark II, also called the Terry. Its riders sat back to back. It could manage 4.5 knots. The warhead was 1,100 pounds of Torpex high explosive. June. During this month the British submarine HMS Unseen carried 3 chariots from Malta to Sicily. The divers surveyed 100 miles of coast, examining beaches to find dangers for armies who would be landing there later. The 11th of June, the other British charioteers went to Loch Cairn. Late June, Britain sent 6 more charioteers to Malta for an operation to attack Taranto. The 25th of June, Mussolini was replaced by Pietro Badoglio as the head of the Italian government. As a result, the attack on Taranto was called off, and the British frogmen were all sent to Scotland. After this, there was only one British chariot attack in the Mediterranean. July, at Loch Cairn, a charioteer died through an accident. The 20th of September, the British midget submarines known as X-Craft set out to attack the German Tirpitz in the Scharnhorst in Kafjord in Norway. The Scharnhorst was absent but the Tirpitz was damaged in the attack. The 24th of September, Britain sent 4 chariots and 12 charioteers from the Scottish base to Lunavo in the Shetlands to train for operations among the Norwegian islands. The 14th of October, a British torpedo boat carrying 2 chariots and 4 charioteers sailed from Lunavo to Tevik Bay in Norway and landed a man called Job to wait until a German ship came, but German aircraft found the torpedo boat and attacked. The torpedo boat had to flee to Britain badly damaged, and it landed at Dunbar in Scotland. 4 days later another torpedo boat brought Job back to Shetland. October and November, a British torpedo boat carrying 2 chariots and 4 charioteers went from Lunavo to Nordfjord in Norway and landed a man to wait until a German ship came. In 2 days no German ship came. The boat went back to Shetland. The 11th of November, a British torpedo boat carrying 2 chariots and 4 charioteers sailed from Lunavo to Tevik Bay in Norway and landed a man to wait until a German ship came to Askvoll harbour. In 2 days no German ship came. It snowed, and they thought that Askvoll harbour would be blocked with ice. As the torpedo boat returned to Shetland it ditched the chariots because of bad weather, and it brought the charioteers back. The 31st of October. On this day or earlier British and American forces entered Naples. October and November, British frogmen went to Brindisi in Italy where they were combined with those Italian frogmen who were in the Allied-controlled areas and those Italian frogmen who had been prisoners in Britain, as a single organization. 1944. For more information about the X-Craft operations, see X-class submarine. The 15th of April, X-Craft attacked the floating dock Laksevåg at Bergen in Norway, but sank a cargo ship by mistake instead. May 14 British charioteers were sent to Trincomalee in Sri Lanka. In the run-up to the Normandy landings, British chariots were used to survey the seabed along Normandy's coast in preparation for the troop landings. The 2nd of June, after the Italians had left the Axis, the Italian destroyer Grecale sailed from Bastia in Corsica to La Spezia carrying 3 speedboats and Italian frogmen including Luigi Durand La Penne, and 2 British chariots to attack the Italian cruisers Bolzano and Gorizia, which had been taken by the Germans after the Italian surrender. The Grecale launched the boats, which then carried the chariots and the charioteers and released them 3 miles from La Spezia harbour. One chariot began to leak from its float tank and had to be abandoned, but the others sank the Bolzano. This thwarted a German plan to sink the Bolzano and the Gorizia, where they would block the harbor entrance. The charioteers did not manage to rendezvous with the motorboats but got ashore and met up with Italian partisans. In August, one successfully crossed the Arno to reach the Allies, but the other three were captured trying to do the same. The 6th of June, Operation Overlord. British frogmen demolished many beach obstacles that Germans had set to stop an attacking army. One drove an army tank onto land. The 11th of September, X-craft repeated their attack on the floating dock Laksevåg at Bergen in Norway and sank it. 27 October 28, the British submarine Trenchant carried two Mk2 chariots, crewed by Sidney Wolcott, Sub-Lieutenant Tony Aldridge, Petty Officer Smith, Able Seaman Brown, to an attack on Phuket Harbour in Thailand. They were released 6 miles out from the harbour. The targets were two Italian liners, the Sumatra and the Volpe, each of approximately 5,000 tons. Both ships were put out of action. 6 hours later, for the only time, the British charioteers rowed back to the mothership. On the return journey, the Trenchant jettisoned the chariots so it could travel faster. After receiving a report of a Japanese MTB in the area, the Trenchant carried the 4 charioteers back to Trincomalee. There were no further chariot operations in combat. 1945 and after the 31st of July 1945, Lieutenant Ian Edward Fraser and the diver James Joseph McGuinness in the Xe-craft Xe-3 attacked the Japanese warship Takao in the Johor Strait near Singapore and sank it. For this action, they received the Victoria Cross. The British chariots were used in the immediate post-war period to clear mines and wrecks in harbours. By the end of the war, the British human torpedo operations had earned the participants 20 medals and 16 men had been killed. Clearance diving teams were formed to clear unexploded ordnance and other military hazards left over from the war.